you try and do your own legal work, you potentially end up in the Supreme Court spending 50 grand a week. And that's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
You could very quickly to spend $500,000 on a big family argument. You know, people being promised something, we quickly start running out of money and it goes so fast. It's simply not worth it. So while it looks expensive now, it's a lot cheaper than what it could be down the track.
Welcome to hard ground. Welcome to hard ground.
Go get good day. Okay. So, have you heard about Go Grain?
They are so cool. Go Grain.
Guys, Go Grain, if you haven't heard about it, if you don't know what it is, and you handle grain in any way, shape, or form, get onto it. Have a look at it straight away. They are champions because they've decided to sponsor us, but I use it every day. And Steph just likes to dance about it. Okay.
You know what the best thing is? Ladies. All the ladies. Say it with me. Never wash a booklet again.
So, each to their own. However they want to, display.
Look, I'm just saying it rocks because no longer do you have little pieces of paper lying around on your bench with numbers on them that you're supposed to keep and you're never supposed to let it go and you're supposed to file it away in some important place of never, never, never. And then your husband will come back to you 3 years later and say, in 2021, did you see that little piece of paper with the little piece of information on the corner that I said to you was really important at the time and I left it on your bench? And I expect you to follow that and file it and keep it safe? Well, you don't have to do that anymore. Thanks, Go Grain.
If you haven't heard of Go Grain and you grow grain, go get
Go Grain.
Get it.
Go get Go Grain.
Go get Go Grain good day.
Ooh.
Go get Go Grain good day. Okay. Tim Flynn. Tim Flynn is the founder and principal solicitor at Land Law Co. He's a third-generation farmer and he specialises in farm succession, agribusiness, rural property law, business structure and estate planning. He's got a Bachelor of Law and agribusiness. Man, this guy's got a bunch of stuff under his tool belt. He's passionate about helping farming families preserve both the farm and the relationships behind it. And he's focusing on the intersection of family, business, legacy, and the land itself. So please give it up for our very special guest this week, Tim Flynn. Tim Flynn, great to have you on Hard Ground, mate. How are you today?
Well, thanks, Josh. Lovely to meet you guys. Been a fan for a long time of your socials, so great to be chatting one-on-one.
Mate, it's fantastic to have you on. You are a bit of a social media stud yourself. Your face came up on my feed, and I was like, "This dude looked really funny." like
No
proper
swearing.
Yeah, sorry, children. Yeah, and I just I was quite taken by your performance, but then got a lot more intrigued as to what you do and why you're doing it. And we've sort of been going down this conversation of obviously succession and just the family dynamics and the internal dynamics that really affect agriculture, family farms and family businesses in general. So coming across you inside the legal frame is a bit of a blessing. So
That's quite refreshing.
it really is, yeah. So it's going to be really cool to sort of get your angle on this. So with that, Tim, what is it that you specialize in?
Yeah, thanks, Josh. So I'm a lawyer, I suppose. So that means that we one piece of the succession planning puzzle. My specialty more broadly is commercial and property law. And I think the succession planning piece fits really into that commercial side of things. So in a succession framework, the typical role of the lawyer is to be that final piece of coordinating everything at the end, writing everything down and getting the dotted line signed. When everything goes well, the other job of the lawyer, of course, is to step in when things become more adversarial, potentially, which is something I think everyone wants to avoid.
Absolutely. That's like a lot of our conversations have been really about, whenever the legal aspect or the legal word comes into play, it's, war drums are being beaten quite heavily at that point, which is the thing that we all want to avoid. Not that we necessarily want to avoid you, Tim. You're quite charming, mate, but it's just that we don't want to go down the path that ultimately means a death knell to relationship, let alone the viability of businesses that make this whole show run. So, Tim, you've obviously, like, how long have you been in the game for?
Yeah, so I think just come up 10 years as a practicing lawyer, which is starting to show quite a few more grey hairs than I used to. So I've certainly haven't been around for the longest time, but been around hopefully long enough to see a few stories, get a few battle scars, and have some good practical experience to provide some sound advice to farming families. I think that's how long I've been a lawyer for, but I'm a farmer as well, and grew up on the family farm. We're still living out there, trying to run it as well as the firm, which is a constant juggle. But it's sort of, so I won't disclose my age, but in the mid-30s somewhere of time in farming and agriculture.
Wow. Do you find that because of your knowledge and expertise in what you do, that has changed the way that you and your family deal with your own farming succession story?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. We've been... Obviously, I'm quite blessed in our family circumstances where we have been given a great opportunity to come back and take over the family farm. That includes buying out my sibling, one younger sister. So it's a good starting point, only having one sibling, and quite lucky that my parents had invested well off farm as well. So the capital intensity of a buyout is minimised with that. So I'm consider myself very fortunate. But having the skill set was also great, but also important not to be too overbearing, right? Didn't want to unfairly take advantage of others by knowing loopholes or things like that. But definitely helped us get ahead of the game, I think, and I was pretty proactive.
So, Tim, tell us a bit more about where you've come from. Like you're a third generation farmer, is that correct?
Yeah, third generation farmer. So I suppose the family farming story is my for generations. I think there was doctors and everything throughout the Flynn family, and slowly over time we've probably not evolved the way that Darwinism says we should, and we've become less smart. So instead of being doctors, we've become farmers. And so my grandfather didn't cut the mustard in medicine, so moved out to Mudgee, where we're from, and he bought a couple of farms there, moving out of Sydney. And he must have been quite nuts because they moved to an area from Rose Bay in Sydney. They moved to an area that had no power, a terrible 30k dirt road,
Wow.
and they had 5 young kids. So it just seems nuts looking back on it now, but they were able to expand that family farm again to facilitate the sort of my father's generation of succession, as well as invest well off farm. And
so, Tim, why did he do that, do you reckon?
Why did he do that?
Yeah.
That's a great question. I think you guys probably know it as well. Once farming's in your blood, it's hard to get back out. And who's to say what got farming into his blood? I don't know the answer. A simpler pace of life, potentially. The thought of working for yourself, but sometimes we get trapped doing that, don't we? Where we instead of working 40 hours for someone else, we're happy to work 100 hours for ourselves and make no money at the end of the year. Some years, so it's who's to say, Josh? I really wish I had an answer to that question.
It's interesting because it's sort of see it a little bit reflected in just some of the stuff that I've seen you with in your content. But you're dashing out of the office to go jump out in the paddock, and you sort of one foot out the office and straight into the ute to go and do that kind of thing. And there's sort of almost like this little bit of there's a similarity of sorts. It is like a drug. There is something that calls us to want to go and put your hands in the dirt and do this sort of a thing. And I think you actually spoke to it quite well, and the reason I ask it is because I think there is a hearkening. Doesn't matter where your background is, whether you're in law or you're a doctor or it doesn't matter what area of work or expertise you're in. There's some kind of intrinsic link that sort of harkens us back to want to be a part of the land. It is, I think, has a lot to do with the liberty that we enjoy to be able to, work for yourself and also be able to swing the cat in the freedoms that we get to have out here as well, which I think is, something that is worth protecting, and it's worth fighting for. And so for your part, it's funny, but you're sort of, what we sort of see inside of some of the people we've spoken to is that they're prepared to take that fight up, to want to make sure that people can keep on doing that. Now that was a bit of a down a deeper streak, but I just sort of was wondering, because it's a strange story. It's like, oh, you've come from Rose Bay. Oh, he came from Rose Bay, dragged him all the way up there to start frontiering the land. So there's a bit of a spirit in that.
Yeah, I think so. And, I would probably love to be a full-time farmer and be of an operating scale that we could justify using myself as a full-time labour unit there. We did have a dream of that, and we tried pretty briefly, but the 2023 sort of beef and sheep market collapse on the eastern seaboard taught me a good lesson in cash flow management, and I sort of realised, with 3 young kids, we can't be doing this year in, year out, where we got enough to live the lifestyle we want in a good year, but we'll face some challenges in tougher years. So we jumped straight back into law, and here we are. I was going to do a little bit of part-time stuff, and now we've got 10 staff and 3 offices, and we're really, really kicking off. So
wow.
It is...
Does your wife work with you, Tim?
Lucinda, my wife, yes, she does work with me, which is any husbands and wives that work together, and there's quite a few on farm, I suppose. We're lucky that we are often in the office environment surrounded by others, so there's no cattle yard language in the office, although there's a lot of biting my tongue at times. But no, Lucinda manages our socials, and she has a psychology background, and so she quite, I think, understands what makes people tick. And so we've really enjoyed harnessing Lucinda's knowledge to do the socials and convince me to put a towel and some sunglasses on my head and poke some fun at some family dramas we all see in farming families.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I love your take on all of that, because I mean that's been the cornerstone of what mine and Joshy's page was all about from the start, was just, I guess, having a laugh in an area where most people don't like to laugh about it. And, that's why I really enjoyed seeing you come across the screen, because, you would deal with some pretty big issues, but the way you're drawing attention to it is fantastic in that you're using comedy. I just love that. But actually, I wanted to go back and ask you a question, Tim, because I get this question a lot in the inbox, and it actually has to do with buying siblings out. And, you mentioned that happened in your scenario. What are your thoughts around that? Because I have heard it from both sides, and to the point where in some farming families it could sink the farm if they had to buy out the siblings. So just from like all the examples that you've seen, and obviously having to do that yourselves, do you want to just shed some light on how you see that scenario?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it comes back to the number one thing that probably needs to be worked out and discovered long before there's involvement of a lawyer, or especially, a lawyer that's engaged formally to document anything. But it is to have a chat around what our family values are and how much. We've got a continuum, essentially, a line. And on one side of the line is that everything is split equal ways. So that means that equal is equal, fair is fair. And on the other side of the line is this family farm, this piece of dirt or this pieces of dirt needs to stay in the family farm. And the eldest son will get it, or whatever the value of that family is. And somewhere on the line between those 2 points is where every farming family that I've come across sits. It's not up to me to say what's right or what's wrong. It's not really up to anyone, but I think the job of a skilled facilitator and good advisors is to help that family determine, well, whereabouts on that line should we sit.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because we had the privilege of speaking to Karen Gale yesterday. And
Yes.
She was really surprised that we were speaking to you today because, she was telling us about what she does. And I think kind of that plays into what you're talking about there, the intention behind why these things get cut up the way that they do. And also, the family's values and what really for the longevity of the legacy of the land, where that all sits. It's a very interesting conversation with her.
Tim, I've got a question. When you're going into a situation where the things are broken down, and there's sibling rivalry that's occurred, or some such thing, and this is it's a business as a whole, but you've got, these are the issues. And you've got mum and dad involved, and mum and dad have got a certain, way in the will that they would like things to sort of look. They've had a plan regarding succession and things like that, and they've sat down, they've had these sorts of things mapped out. And then the siblings, for some reason, have a hiccup, for whatever reason that might be, and it starts to sort of spiral downhill. This kind of a scenario, it's made up, it's hypothetical, but it's very real. Where do you stand in representation there?
That's a good question. And in circumstances where there's, any sort of dispute or any difference of opinion, or we don't have a firm plan, or even if we do have a firm plan, I think there's a real need for independent advice, and we need to be really mindful of each individual advisor's skill sets. So I'm a lawyer. I've been fortunate enough to do some people sort of training and facilitation training, but I would never wear both hats in the same set of circumstances. My job is either to facilitate and then pass you on to a lawyer, or my job is to be the lawyer and use what the facilitator has been able to draw out. And then it's the accountant's job to tell you that financially it stacks up. It's the broker or the banker's job to tell you that, the bank's going to be on board with this. And might be the financial planner's job.
Do you represent everybody in that family, or do you only represent the parents or only the kids? Or
my role is different in every family. Traditionally, I'm finding the sort of layout of the legal market in the Central West is that the parents of generational farmers will probably have a lawyer around their vintage, right? Around that sort of 50 to 60 years old, and they've been their family lawyer for a long time, and they're the asset holder, right? So they're the one with all the crust, the ones that can make the decision. Then it may be circumstances where I come in and act for one of the children, whether that be on farm, off farm, or anyone. Every set of circumstances is different, but one thing that lawyers especially have to be really careful juggling is conflicts of interest. And that's not to say that just because there's multiple lawyers involved means that we need to get adversarial and put our boxing gloves on straight away, because that's the worst thing that can happen, in my opinion. Like, I truly believe there's normally a commercial solution to most problems, whether that be succession or otherwise. And sometimes the the worst thing you can do is be a bull at a gate, because all that does is start getting expensive and makes people like me, money, which, I'm, all for making a profit, but I'm also all for being, proactive and advanced and just have some commercial sense about what an argument where it would actually get you.
Yeah. Okay. So it's an interesting space. I mean, the legal space. I've got one of my best mates. He's in the legal, was in the legal space quite a bit. And it was always quite intriguing to listen to how the space sort of functions. And I think there are different types of legal advice and legal help that you can get. I suppose one of the things we sort of are looking for here is, but I suppose we're investigating or trying to discover is, when these sorts of things come together, where does the ethical or the returning to the plan to help resolve without trying to establish one-manship over the top of each other in a fight. Like, how do we avoid the fight at all costs? I suppose. Given that, is there I know that sort of might sound counterintuitive because it sort of puts you out of your own job in a way, but in another sense, it's like, well, what's the aim? What's the aim behind what you're doing?
Yeah, sure. I think, Josh, like ourselves as a law firm, like Land Law Co., we're a transactions and an advice business. We're not a disputes business. There are other people and other lawyers which will specialise in disputes. It's in every field of profession, there is specialists. It's the same in trades. You've got commercial builders, you've got resi builders, you've got guys that are great at renos and fixing up old buildings, you've got guys that smash out new builds. Regardless of the industry, in farming, you've got guys that love burning diesel, love sitting on tractors, and you've got the guys that just cannot stand sitting in a tractor cab. And they're all still farmers, but they're all just good at different things. And so we're a transactions and advice business. And so that does mean that often we will refer out disputes to other lawyers that are better at handling those. But what I always encourage is to ask a family early on, or my clients or part of the family thereof, is to think about the succession plan from 3 different angles. Think about, firstly, stay in first person. What is it that you want? What do you need out of this process? Then think about what everyone else needs. So put the shoe on the other foot and consider everyone else in the group and think, well, what do you need? And then the third view is, well, let's get up in that helicopter and look at it from 30,000 feet and go, well, what's best for 2 different things? What's best for our family and what's best for the farming business? And sometimes they'll be different things, but more commonly in agriculture, especially in such a capital intensive, emotionally attached industry like farming and agriculture, those 2 things are the same thing. And so, yeah, you sort of end up with a Venn diagram in your head of these 3 circles, and where they interact is probably where the solution for the whole family is.
Do you usually come in at the end? Like, you're not usually through the whole process of succession, you then come in when those transactions are ready to be legalized?
Our role is different in every case. That's where our formal role happens, but often we'll have, and quite a lot of the meetings I've been having lately have been along the lines of, great, let's have a chat, let's talk about your plan. And then, yeah, you're either ready to start drafting some documents and we've got agreement there, or hey, you might need to go away and do some more work with your accountant, or hey, there's some really clear communication issues between a lot of family members here. I think you need to go get a skilled facilitator to come and, to have a chat, and then potentially we can come back to the legal side of things in 12 months' time. Because, documenting plans and documenting transactions can be 2 different things as well. we can document a plan, what we typically, I suppose, the legal term for it is normally a deed of family arrangement, whereby it's agreed that as at this date everything's valued at X, Y, Z, and we as a family agree that as part of stepping down, or the older generation stepping down, or as part of this bigger plan, that we all make these representations to each other that this all will happen and we won't, worry about it later. Of course, the risk of signing something like that is that if you change your mind later, you might not have much of a legal foot to stand on.
Yeah. Okay. You go.
Oh, well, I was going to ask Tim, over your 10 years in the career, do you see a trend in more family farms successfully working through succession and continuing on, or do you see the trend tending toward the opposite of that? Because we get a lot of messages about really, really messy situations, a lot of messages in our DMs where people just want to tell their story, basically. And we put out a shout out the other day to be like, hey, send us your positive ones. Like, what do you got? And crickets so far. We're going cricket. So I'm interested to hear from your perspective. What are you seeing?
I would have to unfortunately agree with that, and with what you're seeing is it tends to it's getting harder, and I think the unfortunate economic reality behind these tragedies is, because there are some terrible stories out there. You do hear some positive ones as well, and let's not get too negative, but there's a lot of selfishness, a lot of greed. There's some big issues out there in farming families, and I mean, many of them are generationally. A lawyer won't be able to come in and fix that, and neither may a skills facilitator. Maybe it's the case that parties are just too far apart. But I think the economic reality, unfortunately, is that land values are increasing in rural areas. We've gone through unprecedented growth in most farming areas. I know in the Mudgee area, farming land, and in the Central West, farming land from an asset class point of view has outstripped the Sydney property market in most suburbs. So and instead of, the family farm being a bit of a debt sentence that you had to take on, and, great for you, the oldest farmer was giving up to take on. Now it's that family farm's worth, 20, 30, 40, $50 million, and the house in town as a substitute for an off-farm sibling, there's a big perception that that's not a fair trade-off.
So you're seeing that as really being a part of the issue then, Tim. It's like as the land prices increased and there's more money associated with that as an asset, you're seeing that there's less of I suppose, contentment with the way that maybe wills or certain assets being divided up, or the way that one part of the family, like maybe the daughter gets a this and the son gets a that, and this other son gets the land, and so this is what we've sort of noticed as well. Actually, it's a bit of a trend. It's like, well, again, it's we attach we attach the way we see our parents loved, or the way that we are loved by our parents, by what they give us physically. So,
but I mean, that's assuming that the person that the baton's being passed to for the farm is going to sell that farm. And are you saying that's the risk that all the siblings see? Whereas a lot of the time they want to genuinely make that work, but because now farming is becoming almost not viable as a business, like a lot of Josh's business friends in America are like, you would be crazy to farm. That's insane. That doesn't make sense as a business. That's ridiculous.
Correct.
And so that family on the farm is now left with this option of, okay, well, why don't we sell it? Because we could set ourselves up for life rather than slogging our guts out for nothing. And of course, the siblings are going to be like, well, we need a cut of that you know.
Yeah, is it just more like it's just what's on that spreadsheet? It's like that's the number that you're worth. That's how much I'm getting.
I think that's where a lot of the disillusion comes from, and the disappointment and disagreement. I think, I think that there's also obviously not just financial things. There's often underlying emotional trauma or things like that might impact people's decisions and the way they react to certain things and the feelings they have about decisions made. But yeah, I think the quick and smart legal solution here at a high level is to differentiate the land asset business and the trading business as two separate entities. Now, they can potentially be owned by different people and be managed by different people, but that requires some sort of agreement or continuing to work amongst family members, and sometimes in some families that's not possible. But if we step right back, when you come to a succession decision or a succession of any business, not just farming family, but you are reaching retirement, you have three options in a family business, okay? You can dissolve or sell, you can distribute, you can sell it to an independent third party, you can put the farm on the market, you can have a clearing sale and say, that's it. We're done. We're using what we need for retirement, and the kids can have the rest, or the kids can have the rest later, depending on how much there is to go around. The next option is we go, okay, we're going to divide, and so we're going to split everything in some sort of share, whatever wherever you sit on the fair versus equal line. We're going to split everything, divide assets. Everyone goes their own way in the next generation. The third option is that we integrate and we pull everything together and we continue working as a family business. Now, normally that means with more mouths to feed as all the generations go down through the family tree, there's more branches, we need to scale up, right? They're the real three options that you've got at a high level. And the question sometimes is, well, how sustainable is that growth in the integration model? But especially when the average rate of return for a farming family is, I think, 2% return on assets managed. Like you can get more you get more in a high interest saving account. So it's tragic like that. There's obviously that's an average. So that means there's people earning a lot less, but there are people earning more as well, making a viable business and viable existence. But yeah, but getting back to your initial thing, Steph, sorry, I went on a tangent there, but the separating that land asset to the business asset, what we can normally do to mitigate the risk and that sort of feeling that the off-farm siblings aren't getting anything and the on-farm siblings are getting a $20 million asset is have what's called a clawback in there. So if you get gifted it and then in 2 years' time you sell it and you go and buy a mansion at Byron Bay, then, you can't do that. You have to give 80% back to the family. But then the amount you have to give back to everyone else scales down over time, the more blood, sweat, tears that you put into the family business and the family asset. So you might end up, if you sell it at 70 because none of your kids are going to come back and you've dedicated, the whole last 35 years of harvest, drought, flood, rain, all the great things that come with farming and go through all that adversity, you might end up with a bigger slice of that pie and only have to pay other shares out. Now,
I think that's a very fair. You disagree?
No, it's interesting. I just like running through it in my head. It's a very interesting notion because you've got somebody who's taking on the farm itself is not just taking on not just it's mine. It's yours again in stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
You steward it for the sake of the family. If you go ahead and sell it and want to move to Bali, then directly after the sale, then this is what that looks like. But then sort of how long, what kind of lock-in period are we talking? Are we talking 10, 15, 20 years? Does it sort of start to whittle down as time goes by, as the blood, sweat and tears start to... And what happens if 2 years down the track, you get 3 years of drought, or it just becomes an almost unviable thing, or someone gets hurt, injured, or conditions change. Is there sort of clauses in that to be able to mitigate?
In a well-drafted agreement, absolutely.
Right.
There needs to be those provisions because, it can be all well and good to make a plan one day, but, there's so many factors that are outside the control of a farming business, and it's a job of a good business owner to try and bring as many of those things, inside their control and control the controllables and make a profit. But there are still in agriculture going to be so many factors that are outside of our control. In broadacre or extensive farming or livestock or anything, a lot of that is going to be seasonal and climatic, as well as market risk, and other things like that. I don't think if you had made a succession plan and done your numbers on the price of diesel being $1.50 forever, and you're a huge, big farming business, potentially the cost structure of, inputs this year, diesel and fert and everything, potentially that business model doesn't stack up anymore. So, do we have to go back to the drawing board? I don't know. I think these are the questions that you have to go through at an individual level with a skilled team of advisors around the table to really work out a fair bit of if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that, if this, then that. And the really good operators on a commercial level, we're not talking farming businesses, but if you've got a $50 million business in the city, you probably structured a bit different because of the capital intensity, but you've got all these battle tests in place. You've got all these risk policies and all this formal documentation behind you, and you know what's going to happen if this, then that, and you've got a great team around you. But sometimes, farmers have been so good at retaining stuff in their head and just rolling with the punches and making decisions based on what's in front of them that sometimes some farmers could have amassed, $50 million worth of assets and, not know how to send an email, not know how to read a balance sheet, not know how to, control cash flow because, it's not what they're good at. So
Broken away.
That's so true. Yeah. I think it's actually a very important option because I'm in a family where I'm the off-farm child in terms of my dad's small business. My brother and sister work in that business, and he has a building, and then that's one asset, and then there's the business asset. And so, I would never want my brother and sister to have to buy me out because I've already seen the blood, sweat, and tears that they've put into it. However, if something was to happen to Dad tomorrow and they were just going to sell it straight away, then that would be a little bit different to me in terms of that scenario. So I actually think that's a fantastic sort of, I think that's quite a good way to look at it because it shows that, and we've been speaking about this a lot with succession, it shows that those siblings on farm or in that business actually genuinely care about stewarding that creation that your parents or those before them have started so that you can continue to pass the baton on through the generations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Tell me, Tim, what would be an ideal scenario for you coming into a job? Family farm, big asset, say $30 million, something like that, multiple siblings. What would you be like? What makes this show run smooth from your point of view?
That's a great question. And in answering, I'm going to try and design my perfect client, I suppose. And that's not the client I'll make the most money out of, certainly. That's the client that I'll enjoy working with the most, would be that they have, as a family, whether with the help of a communication-based facilitator, they have, as a family, agreed with a plan that caters for everyone's needs, and they are happy. They have or are willing to work with a good accountant to make a tax-effective way of transferring management and ownership of their business and land assets. So, and when I say cater for everyone's needs, I mean the needs of exiting parties, those exiting the business through retirement, or cater to the needs of the off-farm children and cater to the needs of the business itself and those members of the family which will be running the family business.
Okay.
What would you say in your experience has been the best example of the matriarch and patriarch being looked after? Like what's the ideal scenario for them?
I think there's two ways to look at this. There's financially being looked after. There's probably a few different metrics of like what they look after. There's the metric of financially, do they have enough money to live comfortably in retirement? Two, do they still have the level of control that they want over the family assets? Or three, do they have security? Are they able to live where they want to live? Maybe that's still on farm. Maybe that's over the coast. Every family's different. And is there still family harmony? And is their legacy being protected? Now, all those different things we talked about, each individual family will put a different weight on the importance of each one of those elements. But for me, as a logical, straightforward thinker, it's probably that they're safe, secure, and financially free. For others that are more people-based, thinking preference, learning preferences, they sit on the other side. Potentially, as long as there's family harmony, who cares about the financial stuff? Everyone's going to be different. So
yeah, I think there's a bit of a juggle there, isn't there? It's like, okay, they want like for a lot of them, it's like the yin yang. They've got this one where you've got the harmony. They want the harmony and they want the peace inside the family because that's obviously they care a lot about that. But on the other side, there's also the uncertainty that comes with one. There's a recognition of mortality and that capacity to be able to reattain security for themselves in the off chance that something goes drastically wrong, and that which is sort of like in the mind, it's like I'm giving or handing my control, my ability to substantiate my lifestyle as it sits now to my children. What does that mean for me? How will this look when I'm 80, 83, 84, 85, and up until the time where I'm no longer here? It's a hard conversation. Do you find that that's something that you have to go into quite a bit, Tim?
Yes, it does. I do. I find it depends a lot on the family's asset structure. In the situation, that you just explained, Josh, we're imagining it's sort of like a full transfer of one farm, right? But what if we can liquidize that asset in some way so that all our wealth isn't in one asset, but instead it's in multiple, and we're able to, push down parts over different times instead of going, boom, it was on one, now it's not, and I'm relying solely on these guys for my income. I mean, potentially some families will see that as, that's fine, but I probably look at it from a risk side and go, well, I mean, I know you love your children and you think they'll do well, but things change. What other security do you have? So, yeah, there can be legal arrangements inside that or looking at that sort of, making the pool of assets, looking at it in a more liquid sense than a one and done sort of thing.
Yeah, right.
Tim, before we jumped on with you today, we did send out a bit of a call out to our followers if they wanted to ask some questions. And I did just have one come in, and I wondered if it's all right if I can read it to you. Basically, what this woman's asking, and maybe it's not in your area of expertise per se, but she's just saying, for families with more complex or non-standard situations, how do you find a succession planner who has the experience to handle it all from the beginning? Is there some way of identifying like those skills before you've invested a lot of time and money only to be told that your situation is too difficult and they have to start again, because that's actually what happened to her. Her parents had this whole thing going on. They worked for a long time with succession planners, and then basically they said, "Oh, we don't know what to do with you." Do you have any advice for people looking at succession? You know, what are some key red flags? What are they looking for?
Yes. My thoughts there are it might not just be one succession planner. It might be a team it might be a skilled team. You know, and I play footy and so, I mean, I don't anymore, but I'd, like to think that once I did. And, in a rugby team, there's tall people, there's small people, there's big people, there's, and everyone's got a different role on the team. And it's the same across, it's the same across all different sports, but rugby's really the only one I know. And, there's people that are good at different things, and that's the skill set you're going to need to find. And normally your accountant would be a great, or your lawyer will be a great point to go, right, well, our job's pretty good. And what happens when stuff goes wrong is when a lawyer probably tries to take on the facilitation piece, or the accountant tries to take on the facilitation piece. And there's some people that can do it and they do a great job. And with some families, absolutely everything will go okay. But if we don't specialise and we don't stay in our lane, that's where most of the dramas I've seen. So I don't know what that lady's set of circumstances were, but if there are extreme complexities within a family, then absolutely you probably need to go and get a number one starting point is a facilitator that can map out the people side of things first. Okay. And then we can move on to those more specialist fields later. And it's important that everyone has a little bit of knowledge about each other's job, right? Like I'm not an accountant, but I'm really familiar with the small business CGT exemptions and all the different tax things that we need to do, because you need to refer to them for individual advice. But it's still important that I know roughly what they're going to say. So yeah, I would say, but for some other families where they've already got a plan in their head and everything's sorted, you might only need your accountant and your lawyer. It's going to be different for every family. How you find someone is, and potentially there's a step that you need to go through before even thinking about succession. If your business is pretty dysfunctional, you probably need to go down the road of business coaching first, because this whole succession piece and asset transfer and everything like that is a hell of a lot easier when it's a profitable business. And sometimes it might not be possible. And that business coach may have to have a hard conversation with you that, hey, this family farm's not really viable as it is. So we've got to change something in the business model where we're operating. Otherwise, we're really not passing on an asset or legacy or anything like that. We're passing on a problem. So that sometimes is a whole nother piece before we even jump into the succession part of things.
I think that's a big point of that and what I'm really discovering through this as well is that if you know your lane, you stick to your lane, then like for me, looking at like the plethora of different individuals that we're coming across, such as yourself, Tim, and hearing that, there's got to be that. I think there's a sense of humility that comes with knowing that you're not going to be able to solve all the problems, and I think for people listening, if you're finding somebody who's got a savior complex to the degree that they think they're going to be able to rescue you out of no matter what, that should be a bit of a red flag, because even though people love to help, I'm not like denying that there can be a true desire there. There's also some things that are underlying that can sort of take the angle off into a different trajectory that they may not come full circle and realize that they can't actually solve it. I remember a circumstance where we were down that way. It was business coaching, only to find that it wasn't the business that was the issue. It was a deeply personal issue, and communication needed to be established before we could actually take a single step forward inside of the area of business. And that was like, well, okay, but I thought we were going to get to that, but it never came to it because you're sort of like you're trying to, screw down the roof with a hammer when you need a screwdriver, and it's
Well,
different tools for different aspects of this great big machine.
Yeah, I think what we've had the privilege of discovering in this process of starting Hard Ground is actually being able to give people like yourself, like we spoke to Karen yesterday, people like Ben Law or Katie Godden, all these incredible people who have all been from different lanes, but we've realized that they all have such an important role to play. And hopefully we can allow people to get to know you guys a little bit because, it is really scary to then put down a huge amount of money when you've had no, exposure to that person. You don't know where they came from. You don't know their moral values. You don't know if they align with yours. And in the succession game, I think a lot of people are walking in being asked to trust the deepest, most difficult parts of their heart with a team of people or somebody for a lot of money, which, as everyone knows, farms are usually pretty cash poor. And that's hard. And when people then get burnt, that's where I think there's this stigma that comes around, succession planning is the worst. It's the devil. We shouldn't be, let's not go there, because there are all of these stories. So yeah, hopefully by speaking to you guys, we can allow people to get to know people a little bit who are really worth knowing and who really do a good job of what they do.
There's a big story that comes in farmers as well. It's quite traditional. It's I'll do it myself.
Yeah.
I'll just do it myself. And we've got no idea what we're doing. Like, you're far too close. You're in the muck and you're trying to clean it up. It's like, you can't do this yourself. Or you're going to find it very difficult unless you've got a really good sense of each other and you've got a good foundation and open communication, all that kind of thing. Even then, you don't know what you don't know either.
Yeah. And I mean, there's two ways to look at this. There's the it's expensive now, or there's the is it going to be expensive later? And I think a practical example of this is me. I have very little mechanical knowledge, so I could pull apart a whippersnipper and think I can put it back together, but I will normally end up costing myself more money with that lawnmower or that whippersnipper or that quad bike or whatever piece of machinery I've tried to fix, and then I've already wasted half a day on it and I've got to call someone out from town to come and fix it. So, what I'm trying to be better at, and what I think everyone needs to be better at, is do what you're good at and refer to others for what they're good at.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and in the circumstances where you try and rewire your own house or you try and do your own electrical work, you're probably getting an electric shock. In the circumstances where you try and do your own legal work, you potentially end up in the Supreme Court spending $50,000 a week. And that's not where you want to be.
Yeah.
It's very quickly to spend easy to spend $500,000 on a big family argument. And whether that's during people's lifetimes for proprietary estoppel issues, people being promised something, relying on that promise and having that dragged out from underneath them, or whether that's an estate litigation down the track, all those proceedings, there's so many mouths to feed that, we quickly start running out of money and it goes so fast. It's simply not worth it. So while it looks expensive now, it's a damn lot cheaper than what it could be down the track.
Yeah, absolutely. I have one other question. Do you want to go?
No, you're right.
Well, Tim, if you could think back to the worst case scenario, I know we don't want to focus
I was thinking about this, but yeah. No.
I know we don't want to focus on that, but I'm interested to hear if you could think of your worst case that you've ever had to deal with. What would you say some of the attributes were that really fueled that fire? And if if they could have not been there, that maybe the situation would have been very different.
I'll add to that as well, Tim. Yeah, like my mind was going to the same sort of thing. It's like, what's one of those cases where you took it home, where it sort of sat with you, and it felt heavy on you, and sort of looking at something in there. Like, have you had a case like that? And what are some of the things that you went through regarding it?
I don't want to sound heartless here at all in answering this question, but I'm fortunate enough that I haven't had one of those cases yet. And
that's amazing.
I have made a deliberate choice I've made a deliberate choice not to. And that harks back to what I said at the start, is I know personally, upon self-reflection, I'm someone that takes stuff on. I'm someone that, worries about stuff at night. I have a very active mind. And so I've made a deliberate choice not to be a disputes-based business, not to undertake family law or criminal law or big litigation matters where people's lives or livelihoods are on the line, or their children or their family home is on the line. I'm not your guy, because I wouldn't be the best person to have in your corner, and I know myself I wouldn't be. We're all got a little bit of resilience in us, but I choose not to be involved in those sort of things. So I feel great empathy for many people in those tragic circumstances, but I've been lucky enough not to take on any vicarious trauma through anyone yet. But hands off to those advisors out there that do that, because I think it takes a lot in a special kind of person to take on those dramas.
Yeah, I think there's it's another sort of a thing to recognize. First of all, what is your lane? What are you good at? What are you not? Recognizing that, but also to focus on trying to get the prevention before getting to those bloody points. Because when that mess is when you're in that sort of a thing, you're looking for those particular types of lawyers to clean up that kind of a junkyard, then it's a whole nother game, isn't it, Tim? Like we don't really want to be there at all. We want to see everybody sort of get together, get communicating, get things drafted up, get a good, reasonable accountability, and then roll forward in a constructive, harmonious manner. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, you've summed it up really well there, Josh. That's definitely my preferred approach.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah, that's awesome.
All right, Tim, thank you so much for coming on Hard Ground, mate. Really appreciated the chat. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Look, we just ask our guests at the end of each podcast if there's one thing you could leave, like a message you could leave our listeners with. They might be going through something like this right now. They might be searching out people regarding how do they even know what's their first steps or whatnot. What would be a message for them if you could give us a single sentence?
I heard a good quote the other day, which is that there is very little that the human mind can't endure if it's not alone. So you are not alone in what you're going through, and you can endure it. Just need to find the right people to help. And that's going to, whatever your problem is, whatever your area is, whatever you're going through, just find the right person to help, whether that's a friend, a GP, a skilled advisor, regardless of where you're at. Just find that one person, and there's always something that can help someone.
Beautiful. So true. Gosh, that's true, isn't it? Like when you know that you're not alone, you can take it that much further. It's and it's true. We're not. But we're a whole industry that is actually connected by doing the same thing. Going in the same way. We all want the best result possible. So, no, thank you very much for that, Tim. Appreciate it, mate.
Thanks, Tim.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you both for what you do, and keep up the good work. It's a pleasure to follow along.
Thanks for watching, guys. Glad to have had you with us. I hope you enjoyed the show. Before we let you go, we just want to let out this little invitation to you all. We have a small, non-denominational Bible study / church that we call Fireside. Happens on Saturday mornings at 8:30. If you're somebody who's looking to grow a connection with the Lord, get to know who this God of the Bible even is, or is just intrigued about these sorts of things, we'd love to have you on board. So, guys, if that's you and you'd like to know a little bit more, please reach out to us. We'll shoot you the link. We'll even point you in the direction of our Facebook group, and just come and be a part of our community on Saturday mornings. Otherwise, we'll catch you next week for the next episode. Cheers.